Welcome to Art and Scroll Studio. I'm Shelley Werner, and we are delighted to host the amazing Michael Bogdanow, one of our amazing artists. Every episode, we celebrate the makers and creators of Judaica art. And tonight, we are happy to have a very special guest. He is an internationally recognized artist, attorney, author, and musician. His art is included in institutional and private collections and included in numerous books. He studied at Brandeis University, where he received his undergraduate degree in studio art. He then received a Master of Fine Arts degree in painting and sculpture from Columbia University's School of the Arts. After 2 years as a high school teacher, he attended Harvard Law School and received a law degree in 1984. He has maintained careers in art and law, written books on law, art, and Judaism, and regularly performed music in both Jewish and secular settings. He and his wife live in the greater Boston area. When I think of Michael's work, I think of a magician who conjures worlds of his own that invite us to imagine whimsical scenes of life as it could be. And with that, I say, welcome, Michael. Hello,
Thank you
Michael.
for having me.
Good to have you. So, did you recognize yourself from that bio?
It sounded like somebody.
Somebody you know really well. Of course, I want to ask you a few questions as we always do up front. And the first one is, did you always want to be an artist when you were young?
Music and art from day one, from when I was a small child. Since I was a small child, I've been making music and making art, and I've been carrying the intertwining of both of them. So when I was about 5, we had a Hammond chord organ in our house, and I taught myself how to play the keyboard on it. And not long thereafter, a friend of mine who went on to become the director of the Museum of Fine Arts, he and I used to make sculptures of musical instruments. So that started, you'll see it throughout my art, but that started when I was in elementary school, when Gary and I used to do that. And also in around that same age, as a little boy, elementary school age, Gary's mom, Gary Tinrow is the friend of mine I'm talking about, his mom did pastels of marbles as though they were still lifes, but her still life subjects were marbles, and I just loved them. I was a little boy, and I just could stand in his house staring at these beautiful, simple, they were just spheres. And it's that is also an image that I've incorporated in my art ever since, as you will see. So the use of spheres and music and all of that in my art, it's been going on since I was a little boy.
And do you consider yourself a painter or a sculptor?
It's a tough one. I would say that, first of all, my training was in sculpture. I spent decades painting after that, but I was taught by a wonderful sculptor, Peter Grippy, and that started when I was 18. So I'm trained as a sculptor, and I like building things. So I have been building artworks. Like I said, I've been building artwork since I was a little boy, and we were making these musical instrument sculptures. Even in my paintings, I kind of layer on the paint, and there are a lot of objects in my paintings and a lot of use of 3 dimensions and shadows. So my paintings have a sculptural side to them. So on some level, sculpture comes first, but at this point in my life, I really think I've intertwined them, and a lot of my recent works combine painting and sculpture, incorporating them into one piece.
Perfect. And the last question I'm gonna ask you has to do with worlds of the impossible. What does that mean to you, and why are you attracted to that?
The Worlds of the Impossible. So that was the title we're using tonight. I would say I love the fact that in art you can make anything happen, and you can make the impossible happen. So in a sculpture of mine, I can put a ballerina on a single toe, have her spinning around, and have her carrying the entire earth in her hands while she does that. That's a lot. It's not easy to do in art, but it's easier to do in art than it is in real life. So on some level, it's taking advantage of the art, the use of art to make the impossible happen. A lot of times it's for fun, but it's not always just for fun for me. So I've brought peace to the Mideast in some of my artworks. That's not just about fun. That's about something I care deeply about, which is really hard to do in reality. But in art, you can do it. And most recently, in my most recent piece, which we'll hopefully have time to get to, a mad king ends up in jail, and the Queen of Hearts takes the throne. That's is it impossible? I don't know. So it's my art approaches the impossible, but maybe it also envisions impossible things that someday could be possible.
That sounds wonderful. So let's have a look at the work. So can you see my screen now?
I can see it. I
Perfect.
recognize
Okay.
it.
I'm glad this looks familiar. All right, let's begin our journey. So what are we looking at here? Obviously sculpture, but what do these pieces mean to you?
So we're looking at pieces from the mid 70s, 1975 approximately. And that is during the years that I was what I would call being trained. Those were the years when I was at Brandeis and was being mentored by a phenomenal sculptor, Peter Grippi. And he loved modern art, but he wanted us to learn tradition and discipline and technique. So on the left, when you're looking at the screen, you see the three musicians. And on the right, you see the horn player. Again, as I said, I've been doing these things since I was about 5 or 6, but here you see what I was doing when I was about 20. Music, it's just such an important theme to me. And so on the left, that's a clay sculpture. And it is something that I also care about, which is groups. And it's a trio, but they're totally intertwined. And when I play music with people, I love it when the people are completely integrated with each other and they're listening and playing off of each other. That's what's happening in that clay sculpture. And then on the right, also done a similar time period, only that is made out of redwood boards, which I cut. It's a large piece. It's 7 feet tall, and it's made out of redwood boards that I cut into probably there are 100 or 150 pieces that I then laminated together and carved and sanded down. And again, it's an image that even that pose is an image that I've stuck with. That's a little bit the impossible. When I was doing it and when I've done similar ones, I try to get into that position to help me figure out how it worked. It's really hard to have your back all the way almost horizontal and one leg up. That's that one.
This looks like a young hippie there.
That is a little bit later, still the 70s. Now we're in the late 70s, and I've moved to New York City, and I was studying at Columbia in the art department, working on my master's in fine arts. And so the first medium I used there, we didn't have at Brandeis, which was welded metal. So you see me there, and you can see a little piece of a sculpture I was working on. I would hammer those pieces on an anvil and make them round and then weld them together until I ended up with rounded organic metal sculptures. On the right, a little bit later, is something that also has stuck with me. It's multimedia, really. It has playing cards and chess pieces and dice and a lot of games. And as you see down there, it's called There Are Other Games. And it's another theme. Games is a theme that I've stuck with as recently as the piece I just finished. And multimedia is also something that I've been doing ever since. That one's a large one. That's about 4 feet by 4 feet.
So now we're looking at some of the influences upon your young, impressionable artistic mind. And I think that we'll be able to see some of this in your work. And what drew you to the collage effect of the one on the right?
So that's Rauschenberg, medium early, relatively early in his career. I was very impacted by Rauschenberg, especially his work from the 40s, 50s into the early 60s. I just love the way he used all kinds of materials. He built, as I mentioned, I'm a builder, and he built art. Rather than say carved down sculpture, he built up sculpture. He used anything he could get his hands on. He used a lot of color. He was playful with his art. He was a Texan like myself. That's why I was drawn to the one you see on the right. And it was made the year I was born.
And now we're going to start getting into some of your paintings. This is the first one we're going to look at, has to do with the parting of the Red Sea, but in a different kind of paradigm.
Yeah, I could share a couple things with you about that. I did that to try to capture what we say at the Seder, which is all of us must feel that he and that she were there when we crossed the Red Sea and went to Sinai, and it's just part of a typical Haggadah or a creative one. So I tried to capture all peoples, not just Jewish people, but whites and blacks and Christians and Arabs and Jews and young people and old people all crossing to freedom. So that's the idea there. But there is a fun story that I'll try to squeeze into the limited time we have. There's a singer-songwriter named Perry Smilo, who I know well. I've played piano with her over the years. She's recorded a lot. And she and I kept talking about making a piece together. I'd paint it and she'd write a song about it. And we were working on the Balaam Balak story, the one of the talking donkey, talking mule, talking ass, whatever you want to call the animal. And it just wasn't working. We never could quite get it to work. And one day she came to an exhibit of mine and she saw the original painting, Exodus, that you're looking at. And she kind of was blown away because while we were talking about doing a piece, she'd been recording the Freedom Music Project, which is about all people of all colors and races singing for freedom, and it's kind of mixed Jewish and gospel music. And this one looks like a CD cover. It's square and
Mhm.
it has a round CD in the middle, but she already had a cover, but she was too blown away by this. So the cover she had, it was just about to come out, was yanked, and this became the cover of the Freedom Music Project.
So now we're looking at something that is very dear to your heart, which is dance,
Mhm.
and also your interest in the sky, in the land, natural forms. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, the one on the left was the first one. That's Miriam's Dance, which is Miriam and the Women dancing with the timbrels. It's that beautiful song by Debbie Friedman, and it's from the Torah, of course, and it's after they cross the Red Sea, and the women are so happy, and Miriam leads them in singing. So that's what you see on the left. The third woman there, girl actually. My daughter danced around at my art studio while I was working on it and worked her way into the painting as the third person there. So on the right, what you see, it looks a little bit like a mirror image, but what happened is that the Miriam's Dance piece sold from an exhibit of mine, and then I received a phone call or something from email from a family who wanted to know if the original was available, and it wasn't. And they kind of pleaded with me to paint it again, which is something I almost rarely do. You won't see two even close to identical works of art by me. It's just not something I'm interested in. But I told him I would as long as I could change it. So as you see, I changed the direction and changed some of the people and changed the sign. I made some changes to it. So the second one is called And the Women Dance because they couldn't have the same name. But in general, doing the same painting twice is not my signature.
Although you do have a motif around the Torah scroll, just as you said that.
Hmm.
I'm- This is a familiar motif of yours.
Hmm.
And tell me about your, this is a beautiful palette, very different than the other one, very calm colors, very serene sky background. What was the impetus for this painting?
Yeah, and I do have recurring themes. It's just I don't like painting the same painting twice. But so this the structure of using that Torah scroll is definitely a theme that I've maintained at least a half a dozen times in my art. So I was commissioned. There was a synagogue in New Jersey that had a new chapel that really somewhat unrelated, but a little bit of a coincidence. The chapel was designed by my brother, may he rest in peace. He was a wonderful architect and a role model to me. He designed the chapel, but when you turn to the east to do the prayers in which we turn to the east, you were staring at a blank white wall. So I was commissioned to paint a painting that you would look at when you turned to the east rather than staring at a white wall. Then I had a friend in Jerusalem go around and shoot pictures in Jerusalem because I wanted to get it accurate. So the buildings that you see are roughly where they actually are in Jerusalem, but I got rid of all the modern buildings so that it would be an ancient Jerusalem, not a modern one. And as far as the palette, it is somewhat different, but my palette is impacted by what I'm painting. Once you have those walls, once you have the ancient walls of Jerusalem, and you have the scroll and you're trying to do the east for sunrise, the colors kind of rolled from there. It wasn't going to work in my deep blues and my deep reds. So the palette sometimes is impacted by the piece. Called Jerusalem Sunrise.
So this one, I was working with you and I got this wrong. And that's why we put the name there as to what this was about. And it's a very powerful piece. It's almost, it's stylized with intention. And, but it is very personal. And tell the story here of Hannah.
Yeah, so Hannah was, and I'm sorry for translating it into American Hannah, but Hannah was barren, and she really wanted to have a child, and she quote unquote poured her heart out to the Lord, something along those lines in the Torah. And it was meditation. It was, some people say it was the first recorded meditation that we know of. She wasn't speaking. People thought she was drunk, actually, because she was mouthing, but no words were coming out. She was looking up at the sky and she was pouring her heart out to the Lord, praying to be able to have a child. Um, I meditate daily and have since the 1990s. And so the meditation part was personal for me. And that's those lines you see, there's sort of this connection she's having with the sky and with the heavens. Ultimately, she did give birth to Samuel, and that's how the book of Samuel begins. All right.
So now we go to something that is a little bit more literal, a little less abstract, and yet by the same token, it has an arrangement of objects. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to ask you because I got a question that did come in
Okay.
about what media you're working in here.
That's a reasonable question to come in, and you can interrupt me like that. Most of my paintings are acrylic on canvas. Sometimes I use wood and hardboard for various reasons. And if I think of it, I'll let you know when I do if we see one. But this would be acrylic on canvas.
And is it easy for you to say the size of them, or are they rough? Are they all over the place, or are they mostly of a certain size?
No, there's a range of size, and in honesty, I can't quite recall this one, but I would say it's roughly a couple feet tall and a few feet wide.
Okay. So Vayasem Lecha Shalom. This is a beautiful sentiment. Is this your wish?
Yeah, it's certainly my wish. There was a fellow also in New Jersey who commissioned 12 artists from around the world to do their interpretations of the priestly blessing. And then he purchased them all and had some exhibits of them as a group. And he found artists from around the world to do it. The 12 pieces were completely different from each other. And this was my interpretation of the priestly blessing. And it captures also those themes that I've mentioned, spheres, the universe, the earth, as you see.
Now, this is one of my favorite ones of yours, actually. because I love the way I mean, sometimes one goes to temple or to synagogue and looks at the words, but wonders how they're going to integrate them into their own life. And I know this has very special significance for you.
Yeah, so that's the Shema, and the words that are pouring out of the Torah are Shema Yisrael. The words that are in there's my use of the Torah scroll again, and the words that are in the Torah are the words that are surrounding in the Torah when the Shema shows up. And I tried to bring the Shema to life. And you're right, Shai, there is something personal for me, which is that, as I said, I've been meditating we're getting close to 30 years, I think. And I often use the Shema as my mantra. I learned that it's an kind of an ancient method of Jewish meditation to use the Shema, the first six words. So I repeat the Shema to myself during meditation daily and have for decades. And I wanted to bring it to life so that it's jumping out of the Torah, flying through the air, and becoming living beings.
So now I did get it right, and this is the burning bush, but it's really spectacular the way it seems to
Thank
have
you.
this flame from within. You've really used your palette here, the reds that you're drawn to, but also integrating the reds of the background into the foreground makes it very luminous and almost tactile. You feel like you could touch those leaves. You didn't glue any on, did you?
What's that?
You didn't glue any on, did you?
That's acrylic paint. That one is straight paint.
Oh my
That
God.
it was a fun painting. That one was not a commission or anything like that. I just thought I would give a shot at the burning bush. And what was fun about it is, most people say to me, somewhat correctly, that I'm not an abstract artist, and there's a lot of truth to that. There's always something that you see in my paintings. I never go as far as, say, Jackson Pollock, who I like a lot, but you don't. My art doesn't go that direction. This one gave me as much room for abstraction as I get. I just had so much fun getting into that bush and trying to create that fire and just paint. I wasn't looking at photographs. Didn't have my daughter dancing around the studio. I just went wild on trying to make a bush burn within a painting. It was fun.
So now we come back to that motif and you use it beautifully. And in this one, you've chosen to put the Hebrew, but also the English. So, what was your thinking when you approached this one?
So in this one, there was a group that was very active in the Boston area in the 1990s, maybe crossing a little bit into the 2000s, called the Jewish Artists Network. And we had a lot of fun. We used to get together on about once a month, and we'd have discussions, some of them very robust. And we had speakers and all of that. So one time we decided, let's all do the Ashrei prayer and see what happens. And as just like with the priestly blessing that 12 artists did, obviously no two pieces were similar. Some were actually very dark and stark and sad even. And some were happy, and it was a big range of artworks. This was my shot at the Ashrei prayer, and in it, one of the things we say is each generation will praise your deeds to the next, and God's creation is discussed aloud. So I decided, well, let's give a shot at God's creation. This was my first use of the Torah scrolls. And on the right in the painting are the opening words of the Torah. In the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. And then on the left, the Torah is just about coming to a close. And we never again saw a prophet like Moses who saw God face to face. And the painting within the Torah is basically my view of God's creation. And then it's a painting in a painting because there's that abstract blue painting that the other painting is sitting in. So it captures a lot of things I like to do with art.
Now, this is pretty powerful, and I don't know, it's pretty abstract to me, but I know there are secrets in some of those colors, and you managed to achieve a real powerful impact with your use of color.
Thank you, Shai. This one definitely is my palette. This one has all those strong colors. I feel like if you're going to paint, let's use some fun colors and take advantage of it. This is one of my two favorite dreams in the Torah. And this is when Joseph dreamt that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. So you see a very tiny Joseph figure sort of in the top of a hill there. And there's a moon on his left with 11 stars as a constellation bowing with the moon as the head. And on the right, there's a sun with sort of sunlight creating a bowing. And this got him in big trouble because it clearly was he was dreaming that his mom and dad and his siblings were all bowing down to him. And so now you know why he ended up in a pit.
Yeah, I can see that. And I love the way you've interwoven the figures. But now we come to something that is interesting in your approach. And I know you have a little story about that. And we that's why we put I and thou there. But tell your story about this.
Well, so I'll tell you, the first one I painted is the one on the right. It's called One Flesh. It's directly from the Torah, and it's along the lines of a man leaves his mother and father and takes a wife, and they become one flesh. A little bit sexist the way it's worded, but I love the idea of those two as a single flesh, and very romantic, and with the beautiful night sky and all that. So that's clearly a Torah-inspired painting. The one on the left is also two people somewhat intertwined in this wonderful moment of just gorgeous sky and the birds flying by. The birds are a couple also. But it's a trick in a way because I ended up titling it I and Thou. Because it's an I and Thou moment. I love Martin Buber. He was the most important Jewish philosopher for my life. And it's an I and thou moment. Everything has come together, the universe, the birds, the water, the sun, the couple. So it's a Judaic painting. But if I had called it Santa Monica Serenade, would it still be a Jewish painting? Then it's just a beautiful couple on the beach with the sun going down. So is that one on the left Judaic or is it not Judaic? I don't know, but I created that question by titling it I and Thou. Martin Buber would have gotten a kick out of that.
And now for an impossible world. So this is one of your motifs, and this is two versions of it. You've got music intertwined, you've got a dance, you've got an impossible position. What's your thinking?
So I did a Fiddler series. These are the first two. The one on the left is the first one. It's Fiddler. And look at that pose. It goes all the way back to the mid 70s when I did the horn player. It's that same back and leg up and all that. And it has an impossibility to it. What I did on the left is the fiddler is almost always a lone figure. The fiddler on the roof is a lone figure, kind of sad, a little bit mysterious, but definitely on his own. I decided to give him friends. And so he has a bongo player and a pianist, and he has a female who's kind of maybe in love with him there. There's somebody painted musical notes, graffiti on the walls. So that one is just changing the fiddler story a little bit. Then on the right, that same fiddler is back to being alone again, and it's night again. Only he's a show off this time, and he's doing that crazy pose, and he's walking across a tightrope, and he's playing his fiddle. He's doing everything he can do to show off to the female, who is now mixed. She's kind of intrigued by him, but also thinks he's a little bit of a hot dog.
They're both powerful pieces. And I think that what gives them some of their power is a lot of this, the negative space around them, and then the figure, which is becomes then even more of a focus and the focal point of the piece. And also a phrase I like to use, which has to do with anticipated action. So when you see a figure that is about to do something, it gives us sort of a dynamic sense to the composition.
Shelley, do you think he's about to fall off?
Depends which day it is, but no, I don't. I think he's stable. I think
I
he's
hope.
stable. What do
I
you
hope
think?
so. And you mentioned the negative space. My people are always much smaller. You're almost always much smaller than what's around. And that's how I feel about us. I feel that we are in a huge universe, and I do try to capture that.
And speaking of the huge universe,
Yes, Nachman of Bratslav was one of the great Hasidic thinkers of early Hasidism, and he wrote so much, and he had so many great things to say. This one, and I actually worked the words into the painting quietly. All the world is like a very narrow bridge, and the essence is don't be afraid. A lot of artists have tackled this that quote because it's beautiful and meaningful and it's visual. So that's the narrow bridge, and there we are in that huge space, and also gave me some room to be abstract. But that's our narrow bridge that we go through life on, and it goes into infinity as it exits the canvas.
I think I need to read this every single morning. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. It's a good one.
So now we're coming back to the dancers, and this is very joyous. I absolutely love the purple in the sky. What were you thinking here? Again, we have the combo playing the music, but we have all different kinds of people dancing.
Uh-huh. There are a lot of things. Again, now you're beginning to get to know me and my art. There are a lot of my themes there. There's that now it's a quartet. Back in the mid 70s, it was just a trio, but there they are again, making music. And there's that strong palette. And what we also have in here that shows up from time to time, uh, like in Exodus, this is all different types of people dancing across that desert. So there's just traditional people, and there's a ballroom dancers, and they're different peoples of different colors and races. There's a family, there's gay, there's solo. I'm just trying to get diversity of human beings all sharing the desert together and music is such a universal language. And so the band is playing instrumental music, and all those different types of people can enjoy it. And the to life, there's another trick for you. It's to life, so it's a Jewish painting, right?
Yeah, you just made it.
Yeah, but not if it was Santa Fe Desert.
That's right. So now we come to something that is a little bit of your signature piece. And how did this come about?
This was more my vision, and it was beginning to incorporate a lot of my themes, the importance of women in our world, and my dream that the world be more in their hands than it is in some of my male counterparts' hands. I wanted to capture the globe, which I care a lot about. You asked me before about painting and sculpture, the globe and the shadows and all that. Again, that's sort of bringing sculptural forms and three dimensions into painting, something that I've tried to do. Those strong colors are meaningful to me, but really it's the relationship between the woman and holding up our world.
Well, I think that we can see here uh, part of your attraction to the spherical form.
Yeah, it's ever since Darice Tinero painted pastel those marbles when I was about 7 or 8 years old.
So here you were kind enough to show us a little bit of your process. And I asked Michael, well, how do you do this? Do you just start? And apparently he sketches it out first. Is that correct?
It's correct, Shelley, and this is maybe the only time. I don't know if I've ever actually shown the sketch of a piece that led to the piece. It's the sketchbooks are relatively private for me, but yeah, asked, and so I was trained very strongly in pencil and paper. Peter really felt that for number one, you had to learn how to use a pencil, a sharpener, an eraser, and a piece of paper. That was just so important to us, and I
Pretty low tech.
spent a lot of time doing that. So I had this idea, I had a vision, and my vision was to move away from that in good hands piece that we were just looking at and have a group of people holding up the world, all of us coming together. Again, diversity of people. But at this point in my life, I thought it was important for people as a group to hold up the earth. It was during the Trump administration #1, and I felt that we really needed to come together and try to hold the earth. So you see, I had this idea, and I just quickly jotted it down into my sketchbook. And then the finished piece was, somewhat similar to that original idea. And also sometimes I don't only use pencil and paper, but I also use Photoshop to plan a piece. Obviously, I didn't in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but more recently, I'll play around with Photoshop as I'm working on a piece.
Your work is very textured. In other words, there aren't solid blocks of color, but for example, here we can see the brush strokes and we can see a sense, this gives us a sense of movement because it's circling around and it's encouraging you to imagine this sphere rotating. And I think that's very effective, especially even on the one they're standing on, is
Yeah.
the texture that you've got.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. You're right, but I must admit, I'm blown away by people like Roy Lichtenstein, who were able to also convey a lot with big flat shapes of color. Mondrian, I like those artists a lot, and I'm impressed that they were able to convey what they were trying to do in big flat shapes. I just can't do it. This is the only way I could do it.
You could do it. You can do it. I have confidence you can. But this one is an interesting painting. I did not see what is there to see until you showed me. So tell people what they're maybe missing.
Yeah, the title of this piece is The Woman in the Mountain. And one day I was in, I think, New Hampshire looking at mountains, and I really saw female forms in the mountains. I just saw them there. And so I thought, well, that's a good idea for a painting. So if I'll walk you through it. If you start, say, in the far right, there's a woman's head. Yeah, thank you, Shelley. There's a woman's head with her hair, and then you keep going, and there are her breasts and her one arm with its shoulder, and then there's her hip, and then her leg goes down, and it goes around towards her ankle, and it leads off the painting her foot. So I kind of, the mountains I was looking at didn't look exactly like that, but I tried to create a mountain range that had a woman in it. But that wasn't quite enough for me. And so I decided to do a small hill on this side at the front of the painting with some goats. And sometimes paintings evolve when you're doing them, which is a nice thing. And so that goat at the very top, it's mesmerized by the woman. It has fallen in love with, yes, that one. That goat has fallen in love with the woman and is stuck in a stare. And since paintings are generally stuck in one moment, that goat is frozen in time, always mesmerized by the woman in the mountain.
So this is called Passage because it's evoking a movement in time.
Yeah, it's funny. I just said that paintings are frozen in time, and now you show one that in which I tried for them not to be. To me, paintings are often a split second that you're looking at, and I wanted to do something about that. I tried to challenge that notion, and I think about time a ton and read about it. And it's time is very important to me. So I tried to capture time in a painting. So there she is on the right side of the on your right side of the canvas, and she's running along, and she takes that impossible leap back to the impossible thing, leaping a river that no person could actually leap, but she can because she's in an artwork. She's not a real person. And just for the fun of it, because I like fun, she takes that sun with her for a brief moment, and then she lands on the other side and keeps going. And I tried to get that movement, not just a split second, but some period of time inside of a painting.
Do you use a photo reference to get these figures? Um, th- I'm wondering, you don't have a live model, I'm sure. How do you,
Yeah, every painting's different, and I don't. Sometimes I use live models, but often I don't or can't. And my memory is I bought a license for this one. for a video that was about 25 seconds long. And the video was a woman. She wasn't dressed like this, but she was running along a beach and then doing some kind of a ballet leap. And then she ran on. And so I actually purchased the right to use that video. And again, translating a video to a painting is interesting because a video does have time, film has time. Painting doesn't. But to answer your question, I think you're just learning this for the first time. This painting was inspired by a video that I bought.
All right. See, I didn't ask you all the questions in advance.
Nuh-uh.
Now this is 3D.
It's 3D and it's the third of my Fiddler series that you saw the first two earlier. Lately, in the past 4 years, I've returned to sculpture, and my first return to sculpture was using beads to make sculptures, and then I learned that I could get little chips of stone, which were better for my purposes. The beads were round and had holes in them, but you can actually buy just small chips of semi-precious stones like turquoise and jasper, etc. So I've been building sculptures. And this one, I've gone back to painting and sculpting, as I was mentioning to you. So it's a round 18, yeah, that says that. It's a round painting on wood. And then I built a shelf that connects to it. It hangs on a wall, and the fiddler is standing on that shelf. So it finally integrates my painting and my music and my sculpture, and all of that has come together.
So here we have two different pieces, I think. I think
You
we have a
do?
painting
Uh-huh.
on the left,
Uh-huh.
and we have this is one sculpture, but different views of it.
Yeah, that's right, Shelley. So the on the left is my one of my other of my two favorite dreams in the Torah. I just think it's the most beautiful dream that Jacob has when he dreams of angels going up and down a ladder to heaven. It's just such an image, and the up and down, and the fact that angels would bother to use a ladder. Why would they use a ladder? They're angels. If I were an angel, I'd skip the ladder. I would just fly up and fly down. So I just love that image. That painting is from the 90s. And in my sculpture, I was trying to capture that. And in my sculptures lately, I've been trying to capture the impossible, something that I couldn't do very well as a young artist. I struggled with bringing fantasy, dreams, and impossibility into sculpture because sculpture is so real and so physical. But I'm getting back to it now. And so this is an example of my taking an image that I could make angels go up and down to heaven in the painting 30 years ago. And now I've given a shot at it in sculpture.
Now I know someone's going to ask the question is how big is this sculpture on the right?
Okay, that the ladder I made is 4 inches wide by 4 feet tall.
Ooh,
I
that's
painted
big.
a little 5 inch circle painting of the sky, and so it hangs from a ceiling, and the angels are each about 7 inches tall.
So now we're having a revisit with this trumpet player, but what are we looking at on the right?
So that is again, it's in this new period I'm in of stone chip sculptures. And I wanted to bring back the horn player that we already saw before because it's still such an important theme to me. That pose is important to me, but now I'm finally able to get some of that impossible into sculpture, which is that's the part that's relatively new to me the past few years. So again, the horn player, like the fiddler in one of the two fiddler paintings you saw, is just on one foot and is walking across a balance beam and is playing the trumpet while doing it, and the shadow is following him. And so I'm finally really, I feel good about getting some of my painterly ideas, as well as that pose you see from the 70s, into my sculpture now.
And now we're seeing the world again being held aloft. And I know that this piece has movement to it.
This piece is motorized. I've done three motorized sculptures in the past 2 or 3 years. This one, she goes around one rotation per minute. She goes around very slowly. And this one, like in Good Hands, it's a woman carrying the globe. But I'll tell you, it's way easier to paint a woman carrying a globe than it is to sculpt one because as I said, sculpture adheres to the law of physics. The globe wants to fall off. The globe wants to pull her arms down. In fact, the globe kept doing that as I was making her. I put that globe on. It wasn't too easy to get it attached. And then the next thing I knew, those beautiful, slender arms of hers were coming down with the globe. And that kept happening. And I actually took her arms apart. I reinforced them inside the stones with very strong steel bolts that you can't see, of course. And then even getting the globe to stay put to her hands took a lot of time. But eventually I got it. And I personally, this is one of my personal favorites because this is everything for me. This is the world, it's the globe, it's the importance of women, it's the beauty of women, it's movement. And it really is movement because it goes and it's that shadow. So this is one I don't keep a lot of my sculptures. This is one that I'm keeping.
Now, here we have a figure, and we're going into some of your political statements here.
We are. So starting a year ago, all I've done, every work of art I've done since the November election a year ago, close to exactly a year ago, has had a political edge to it. I don't consider myself a political artist, although I've done some, and we maybe will have time to see some, but uh, I can't do anything now because I can barely talk about the world we're living in now. It's so frustrating to me, but I can make art about it. And so I am doing that. That was my first one on the left, the first one after the election. Etched into the wood, burnt into the wood is Clown on Learning of the New Autocracy. And that is how I felt in November. It's still how I feel sometimes, but I was so blown away. And that poor clown is so horribly sad. And I tried my best to capture that. The next one I did is the one on the right. There was a wonderful Zionist thinker early who was named A.D. Gordon and a very universalist, humanist Zionist. And the quote down there is, it's a little hard to see perhaps for some people. Instead of fighting the darkness, increase the light. That was from A.D. Gordon. And that's how I felt. I felt, okay, we can't necessarily take on the evil in the world, but we can increase the positive in the world. And that's what I tried to capture in the painting on the right.
And here's another world well, we won't say the impossible, but this is something you're trying to capture, a vision.
Yeah, this is, I mentioned earlier that I brought peace to the Mideast. So that let's hope that's not impossible, but it's certainly challenging. And so in this painting, obviously it's at the Wailing Wall, but everybody's getting along. Look at that. That's why it's called Imagine. There's
Well done.
Muslims and Brooklyn Jews and Palestinian kid with an Israeli kid and a religious fellow with a female next to him and a gay couple, everybody, and they're all look at how peacefully they're getting along with each other there. To me, that would be great. I don't want to call that the impossible, but it is certainly using art to capture what I think a lot of us would love to see happen.
So I think we're coming to the end of your paintings, and this is sort of the final word for you here.
Yeah, that was during Trump won, and that was I was so frustrated by the new concept that the idea is to keep people out, and it's even worse in Trump too. And so in Judaism, I've paraphrased it there, but we do say, and it's in the Torah, that we were once strangers in a foreign land, and so we're supposed to treat strangers specially, not hurt them, but help them. And so I actually, for the fun of it, I turned it into a haiku. It's 575 is your traditional haiku. And so that's what this is. Open up our gates because we were once strangers in a foreign land, and there they are, and there that couple is going to get in through those gates, but unfortunately, it's only gotten worse. This painting didn't seem to change the world.
Not yet. And now we're come back to a piece that we've already seen.
Mhm.
So we're in our denouement, and
Mhm.
tell us about this piece that also has a political meaning for you.
Yeah, as I said, since the election, and someday I may come out of it, but since the election, that's all I've been doing. And so I wanted you to include the one on the left because, as you know, that was from back in New York in the 70s. But as I mentioned, I love games and I love playing games, and so like the one on the left and the right, I've used a game to try to express something. And it's accurate. Those three little black pawns, you could almost miss them. They have surrounded that king on the white corner. And for those of you out there who have come tonight, you can see there's nowhere for the king to go. He can't move anywhere without being captured. And so instead, he just goes falling off the board and trying to grab hold of something, but grabbing hold of lightning is a really bad idea. So the three pawns have conquered the Mad King.
Now, here we have, I think, one of your latest pieces, and tell us about this one.
This one was just finished in time for tonight. It was just finished in the past couple weeks. And again, this is using my multimedia, and it is literally made out of playing cards. I had to invent a few of them. I had to invent the victorious queen and the king who's in jail and the Joker who is literally, I built a shelf, just like the Fiddler piece, Sunrise Sunset. This is on wood. It's a painting on wood, and I built a shelf. It hangs on a wall, and I built that Joker who is riding a unicycle, and the Queen wins. The Queen of Hearts is victorious, with a little help from the Jack, who I had to invent because his leg is coming out of that card. And the king has lost and is stuck in jail. And it was a little tricky to keep those cards. It's obviously they're glued together, but even to get them to stay put while I was gluing together and to get it to be that tall was a little challenging. I had to invent the victory flag there because cards are vertical, but flags are horizontal. So I tried using a card. It looks silly. So I had to create a horizontal ace of hearts. And by the way, the sun, keeping with the game spirit, is a poker chip. I love playing
Oh,
poker.
well done. And now we come to the questions because there have been some, and I'm going to pose to you. But while I'm asking Michael the questions that people have put in the chat, you can have a look at how to reach him and some of the things that you can get from his website. Hanukkah is coming up, and Michael has some things if you're interested. We always like to give our artists an opportunity to show how they can connect with him further. Some comments that came through is that one person said they love your color palette, your use of colors, and how lots of his 2D works look 3D in parts. Someone said, I see a lot of moons in Michael's paintings, man in the moon with different faces. Could Michael talk about the meaning of these moons to him?
Sure. I love the moon, and I love including the moon. And I see the man in the moon or the face of the moon. When I see a full moon, I can't not see it. I always see a face in that moon. And the moon, it's just the moon, it's so important. Obviously it's always been there. People the moon was godlike to early people. And the moon is important in Judaism. We're a lunar calendar religion, and so it's hugely important in our life. Our time and calendar is guided by it. It's so gorgeous. Watching the full moon come up is such an experience. So yeah, I include the moon, and also as I've said so many times now, I love the sphere shape. And the moon is just a perfect one to use, the moon and the earth both.
Another question that came through was there's a deep sense of the spiritual in the deep purple. palette in many of the works. Is there any attempt to bring God into them through color and theme?
Well, that's a hard one. I struggle with the word God. I just because if I say that, everybody that's listening tonight is going to have a something different's going to go on. It's a tough word to use and not one that I use often because I know that it doesn't work well because we all have such a different impression of what that means, what God means. So I'm going to have to change that question a little bit and stick with the spiritual piece of it. I do find a lot of my work, I try for it to be spiritual. I care about spirituality and the spirit and the soul, and it's particularly in relation to how humans interact with each other. And that's where my God primarily lives. My God primarily lives among us, how we treat each other and how we treat nature and the sky and the universe and all of that. Uh, that's where my spirituality lies, and that's where so much of my paintings lie.
And we have one last question. It's about your sculptures. Someone is wondering what the instruments are made of, the horn and the fiddle. The comment is they are not stone chips. What are the instruments made of?
So that's a wonderful question. So I had to go on the web and I had very strict things I was looking for. And I had size, I needed them to be certain sizes and I needed them to be real. I needed them to be realistic. I couldn't use plastic. I couldn't use toys. For what I was trying to do, I wanted that fiddle player and that horn player to actually be playing those instruments. So it was not easy, but if you go on the web, and my memory is particularly on Etsy, I was able to find the size and quality and look of the instruments that I needed.
That's wonderful. It's amazing the things that you can find online. There isn't anything that you couldn't put in the search bar. So
Right.
it's good to know that you were able to augment what you had done and to tell the story as beautifully as you have done. And now I want to thank you very much for giving us all of your time and attention for helping to create such a beautiful presentation. I think it was just right. Beautiful flow and just the perfect amount of time. If you notice, we are landing the plane as we were meant to.
Yeah, I'd love to just take a moment, really, just to thank everybody involved. I want to thank everybody that took an hour off of their busy schedules to come be here, which is great. I want to thank Shelley and Karen for doing this, and Temple B'nai Tikva for hosting, and the American Guild of Judaic Art, which I've been a member of since its early years, and it's just such a great association for any artist or even just arts inspired people out there. You should look into the Guild because it's a wonderful, wonderful group. So, time, as I said, I think a lot about time. I know how precious it is. So, thank you to all of you for having taken this time.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was a pleasure to work with you. As I got to know how specific you were about everything, that's the lawyer in you, I think. I started to anticipate the things you would want. You're probably going to want to know these questions. I knew it. So it was fun to get to know you. And now I'm going to ask Karin if she'll come on and say a word or two.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you could come and enjoy the show. Michael, thank you. That was just delightful. You'll be hearing from me in the next week or so. I'll be sending out, again, more information about how to contact Michael. If you have any further questions, interested in some of his artwork for yourself, possibly Hanukkah gifts, follow us on YouTube. I put that link in the chat. And thanks again for coming.